Honey Bojo Sego, hello, and welcome. My name is Cody McGregor. I'm a diabetes wellness worker with the Indigenous Diabetes Health Circle. And today, to celebrate Indigenous Awareness Month, you, me, and everybody else here are going to take an exciting trip, and we are going to learn all sorts of cool stuff about health, wellness, diabetes, and how all of these topics apply to Indigenous people. So buckle up, get your shoes on, get all your stuff together, let's pack a lunch, and let's hit the road and see what there is to find out. Wellness is the act of practicing healthy habits on a daily basis to attain better physical and mental health outcomes, so that instead of just surviving, we're thriving. To understand the significance of wellness, it's important to understand how it's linked to health. According to the World Health Organization, health is defined as being a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. Several key areas of your lifestyle contribute to overall wellness. They include social connectedness, exercise, nutrition, sleep, and mindfulness. Each one has an impact on your physical and mental health. By making simple and healthy choices on a daily basis, you will be well on your way towards achieving optimal wellness. Start with small changes and take it one day at a time. You don't have to run a marathon or go on a restrictive diet to implement wellness into your everyday life. So our first topic today is, what is diabetes? Well, diabetes is a condition where the body does not properly use the food that we eat as energy. 1 in 3 Canadians currently has diabetes or prediabetes. Previous research shows that those 20 years of age today face a 50% chance of developing diabetes in their lifetime. So what happens when I eat or drink stuff? Let's think about it. To get a better understanding, we need to know that there are 3 different types of diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is where the body secretes no insulin whatsoever. Type 2 is where the body secretes a little bit of insulin, but not enough. Or the insulin that it does create does not work the way it should. 90% of people living with diabetes have type 2. And the third type of diabetes is gestational diabetes. This happens during pregnancy and often goes away once the baby's born. There is a lot that young people can do to preserve their health. While sometimes diabetes presents no symptoms at all, common signs and symptoms often include extreme tiredness, extreme thirst, headaches, frequent urination, and cuts and scrapes that take a long time to heal, a tingling sensation in your fingertips or feet. Some risk factors for developing diabetes are being of Indigenous ancestry, being overweight, having family members who live with diabetes, being inactive or living a sedentary lifestyle, having had gestational diabetes or given birth to a baby over 9 pounds. So learning more about diabetes means that we need to really focus on our bodies. Something that has a huge impact on our health in all conditions is physical activity. If you can, it's the best thing for you to get out and just be active. Things like taking hikes, playing a sport, having a dance-a-thon, starting your own garden, walking your dog. These are all great examples of things that we do almost every day and love to do and should continue to do as a means to help preserving our health. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I am getting hungry. So why don't we explore down the ways and find a nice spot that we can set up and have a lunch. Traditionally, we as Indigenous people had a different and much healthier connection with our surroundings. Survival required constant physical activity, right from hunting and gathering, planting and harvesting, song and dance, and even communication. Today, we rarely walk to our destinations, hunt, gather, garden, or participate in traditional games, social dances, and ceremonies on a regular basis. The decrease in physical activity and the increase in the consumption of unhealthy, processed foods has led to the Indigenous diabetes crisis. Having a nutritious lunch is super important for having the energy that we need to make it through the day. Things like berries and fruits and vegetables should make up 50% of our healthy plate. The other 25% of our healthy plate can be meat, protein, or nuts. And then the other 25% is things like, is our starch. So things like our noodles, or our potatoes, or our rice. Fruits and vegetables are chock full of fiber. Fiber is great for our digestive system. When we drink things like fruit juices, while there might be a picture of the fruit on the container, there's not a whole lot of fiber actually from that fruit inside of it. So the best thing we can drink throughout our day is water. And when we're craving that nice blueberry taste, the best thing to do is just eat a couple blueberries rather than, your blueberry juice or your orange juice and things like that. A lot of the juices that we drink have a lot of hidden sugars in them, surprisingly enough. And where you go to find that information is on the nutrition label on the side of the package. You'll be able to take a look at that and read through it and see exactly how much sugar's in the foods and the drinks that we eat. While we're on the topic of Indigenous nutrition, I wanted to just hit a couple really important points. Us as Indigenous people, for thousands of years, relied on Mother Earth for our food. I think a big change has come in the past 100 to 300 years. There are a lot of things that we now eat every day that us as Indigenous people were never exposed to for thousands of years. Things like salt or sugar or flour, which is in bread and little crackers and things. Milk even, and butter and lard are 5 things that were never here for thousands and thousands of years. So for us as Indigenous people, what makes us more susceptible to diabetes is the fact that those are now in our diets everywhere we go, in a lot of fast food and in a lot of products at the grocery stores as well. So it's super important for us as Indigenous people, and for all people, to do what we can to reclaim what we know as an ancestral diet. A lot of these ancestral diets don't have, fried items or sugary items and things like that. Very natural, from the earth type cuisine. And we know there's a lot of really great chefs who would do a lot of work to prepare books such as this, The Sous Chef's Indigenous Kitchen. This is by Sean Sherman and Beth Dooley. This is just a great example of some of the many great pieces of literature that are out there that teach us more about what it means to eat indigenously. And speaking of Indigenous food, it's a really great time of year for us to start our own little mini gardens. Maybe some of you at home have some gardens at your house, or maybe at your grandparents' house. And just gardening your own food is a really great way to be involved in the process and know exactly what foods we're putting into our bodies. Not only that, but it's great to get outside, and it's a great way to get physically active. So next on our agenda, I want to talk a little bit about culture. And what better place to talk about culture than Springwater Park here in Barrie, Ontario. It's the place that we would normally gather for our Indigenous Education Day. It's a place me and the kids love to go on weekends to get away from the city and just have some nice quiet time in nature. So why don't we head over there and we will talk a little bit more about Indigenous culture. Springwater Park is a 142 hectare day-use park operated and managed by Beausoleil First Nation. I'm here at Springwater Park, the place where we would normally gather for our annual powwow celebration. Unfortunately, that won't be happening this year, but I thought it would still be a great place to come through and talk a little bit about the importance of culture and how it applies to our health and wellness. There's a lot to talk about, so why don't we grab a seat up here in my favorite tree and we'll go over it all. Come on. There is not one culture for all First Nations. Each nation has its own culture, customs, beliefs, traditions, and worldviews. Cultural practices, symbols, and belief systems are influenced by each nation's unique experience on the land and with each other, and are always connected with the spirit world. The areas that we live, play, and go to school in have a long history, and Indigenous people have been there for the entire bit. Have you ever heard something called a land acknowledgement? It goes a little bit like this. The following land acknowledgement is a response to the 94 calls to action contained in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's final report. we acknowledge that this gathering is taking place on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. The Anishinaabe include the Odawa, the Potawatomi, and the Ojibwe, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. That's called a land acknowledgement, and it's meant to bring awareness and acknowledgement to the Indigenous people that have occupied these lands for thousands of years. It's a positive step, and it's a step in the right direction. But when we think about culture, there's so much more to that word that comes to mind. Now, when I think culture, a couple things come to mind instantly. I think things like ceremony, or dancing at the powwow, or singing at the powwow. I think of the regalias that are there. I think of the different medicines and our connection to Mother Earth, and I think of things like even how the men in our communities wear their hair really, really long. All of these little things build together to make the bigger picture, which is Indigenous culture. Now, Indigenous people, some of them may choose to sing, maybe are fantastic singers, and maybe are part of a big drum group, or maybe sing and you see them with their hand drums. Some Indigenous people are really great dancers, extremely gifted, and share that talent with us when we gather at the powwows. Some of our Indigenous people are very passionate about things like language reclamation, and their area of expertise is teaching the children and teaching adults, again, to reconnect with our language. There are so many different angles that we perceive Indigenous culture, and each of them are extremely important. I think it's important to note as well that Indigenous people sometimes don't do all of them. Sometimes people gravitate to what they're good at. Sometimes people gravitate to things that their family has been active in for a number of years. So for the Indigenous people and your classmates, it's a cool discussion to have. Ask them what is their piece that they bring to the puzzle. And sometimes they bring more than one, which is a beautiful thing. So it's a great opportunity for us to talk to each other, to learn something new, and maybe even learn a little bit more about your classmate. Indigenous people have a very strong connection to our ake, which means earth, and our nibe, which means our water. You may have heard or seen of people doing what we know as a water walk. Mother Earth Water Walk is an Anishinaabe-led initiative dedicated to raising awareness about the importance of water and the need for protection of water. Organizers and participants have walked around bodies of water since 2003 as a way of taking action against water pollution. It is an extremely important movement that has received international support. Which is really interesting because our bodies are made up of at least 70% water. And the food that we eat, both vegetables and meat products, are also full with at least 70% water. Everything that we eat thrives and survives on the water around us. That's why it's so important for us to take care of it, and it's also so important for us to drink it regularly. So sometimes it's really easy to see what portions of culture people hold near and dear to themselves. I know some friends of mine who are just talented dancers, and it's rare to see them standing still in a single place. I have some friends of mine and colleagues who are extremely gifted in their talents that they use towards language reclamation. And it's a beautiful thing to hear when people are using their Anishinaabe or their native tongue to speak. Some people like to wear things that are beaded, that people have made for them or that they've made themselves. And the work that they do is incredible. Some people, like myself, wear their hair very, 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 very long. It's because me having super long hair gives me a stronger connection to the Creator. Always braiding our hair with good intentions, because these three strands that we tie together represent our mind, our body, and our spirit. So there's all sorts of different ways that people practice these things and represent them. So just keep an eye out next time you see someone or something about them that you think might signify culture to them. Then it's a great opportunity to have a really nice discussion and learn a little bit more about it. There are a variety of Indigenous organizations, programs, and services available in Simcoe County that work to connect people with culture, language, and collaborative primary health care. Anishinaabemowin, also known as the Ojibwe language, is currently taught at the elementary, high school, and college level in an effort to prevent the language from going extinct. The Ojibwe language predates the Egyptian pyramids, and practicing it is a great way to exercise the brain. So we've talked about our wellness as a whole, and this is made up of our emotional, our spiritual, our mental, and our physical well-being. We know that if one of these areas is struggling, that it puts us off balance, and we are at higher risk of developing different health complications such as type 2 diabetes. Stress can be good and bad. It's healthy to have a little bit of stress in our lives. It keeps us on our toes and can give us the energy and push us to do things that challenge us. Prolonged stress, however, is not good and can lead to serious health complications such as depression, exhaustion, high blood pressure, and heart attacks. Finding ways to reduce stress will be your own personal journey. Do what works for you and do things that you like to relax your mind, body, and spirit. Music and writing music has helped me through a lot of difficult times in my life. So for a lot of people, we really like the arts. Some people are extremely talented at drawing or painting, or are very talented songwriters or instrument players. All of these different arts do so much for our emotional and our mental health. I fell in love with the idea of helping people and helping raise awareness about diabetes in our Indigenous community. I found that I was first introduced to that concept through music, and I soon decided that it was something that I wanted to do for a career. Mark Twain once said, "Let your vocation be your vacation. That is the secret to success." Express yourself, have so much fun, be creative, create something new. You never know when you're going to help someone, and the world needs more of that. Indigenous artistry and innovation has had a huge influence on the world we live in today. Things like the snowshoe, ice fishing huts, syringe needles, and hockey all have connections to the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. Olivia Poole invented the Jolly Jumper. Link Ray invented rock and roll. The Iroquois Confederacy was the base model for American democracy as we know it today. Indigenous people excel in a variety of professions, such as authors, scientists, judges and lawyers, senators and members of Congress, astronauts, NASCAR drivers, NBA basketball players, NHL hockey players, PGA golfers, award-winning chefs. They are our teachers, our doctors, and our first responders, and the list goes on. So we've covered a lot of ground. We've covered a lot of content. And so thank you very much for joining me and for coming along for this trip. And I just wanted to finish on one note, really emphasizing the importance of men in our communities. We really need the young men as now they're growing up and they're coming into their next stage of their life. We really need to remind them that they're valuable and they're essential part of our community. We need young men to grow up and to be present and to be role models for the young ones coming up. Our community is like our holistic wellness model. There needs to be balance. And I'll leave that with you today. Think something to think about is that, what role do you play in bringing that balance to our communities? There's a lot of stuff that we didn't talk about today. Really learning about Indigenous cultures is a lifelong journey. And I figure, you know what, we'll tackle it in little bits and bites, and we'll get there as a group. So, Chimigwich for coming today, Chimigwich for being such good listeners, and I'll see you next time. Kamapi.